Hello everyone, I'm Lao Go. Today let's talk about the recent aviation accident. On June 12th at 1:38 p.m., just 1 minute after taking off from Ahmedabad airport, Air India Flight 171 was less than 300 meters away when the crew suddenly issued a Mayday Mayday emergency call. Almost simultaneously, the flight lost contact with the ground control tower. The plane then began to descend rapidly and crashed into a densely populated area 1.5 kilometers from the end of the runway, directly hitting a dormitory building of a medical college, causing a massive explosion and thick smoke. I believe everyone has seen the footage through the news and social media. The flight carried a total of 242 people, including 230 passengers and 12 crew members. According to the official report, out of the 242 people, 241 perished, with one survivor. The survivor is a British citizen named Ramesh, who is 40 years old. I think everyone has seen the footage of the survivor walking out of the airplane cabin on his own. When I first saw this footage, I really thought this person might have been someone on the ground who got injured, or a fake survivor, but it has now been confirmed that he was indeed on the flight. The plane, however, did not explode at the location where he was seated, nor did it suffer a severe impact. Coincidentally, the plane broke apart at his location, allowing him to quickly escape the scene. In fact, if his position could be spared, I believe the areas around him and those very close to his position theoretically had a chance as well. It's just that perhaps those people did not wake up as promptly as he did, or they were unable to leave the scene quickly, and unfortunately they perished. So this person is definitely a survivor, pieced together by many extreme coincidences. His seat number was 11A, which is in the front row of the economy class. This seat, as I think everyone who has flown knows, has a lot of space in front of it, and many people like this seat. It's estimated that this seat will become even more sought after in the future, and the seats around it will likely be hard to get as well. As I mentioned earlier, this crash involved a collision with a dormitory building, so the final death toll could be much higher than 241 people. Some media reports suggest that the number of fatalities could reach or even exceed 300, which is one of the most tragic scenarios in an air disaster, where the plane crashes into a residential area. It's worth noting that this plane was a Boeing 787, a model widely regarded as one of the safest among commercial wide-body aircraft. Since the Boeing 787 model was first introduced in the year 2011, up until this particular incident, it had never experienced any accidents resulting in passenger fatalities for a total of 14 years. This is indeed a very rare achievement in the realm of new generation large wide-body aircraft technology. Of course, it is not the only model without fatal accidents. There are quite a few models that have not had fatal accidents, such as the Airbus A380, A350, A220, Boeing 747-8, and the 717, among others. However, these planes usually have shorter delivery volumes or service years and can't be compared to the 787. The 787 is a type of aircraft that is used in large numbers, has a wide range of applications, and has a very low accident rate. Since the 787 has performed very well in long-term performance tests, this sudden serious accident is quite unexpected. Initially, in the analyses I saw from many experts, they did not prioritize the possibility of an issue with the aircraft itself. Instead, they speculated about potential bird strikes, terrorist attacks, or crew operation errors, suggesting that the likelihood of a problem with the plane was relatively low, and that external factors were more likely. Currently, the exact cause of the aircraft's departure is not clearly known, but the black box has been found. Moreover, because there is a survivor, the answer might come earlier than in a typical air crash. According to the survivor's description, about 30 seconds after takeoff he heard a loud bang, and then the plane started to descend. So, what exactly this loud bang was has become crucial. A loud bang usually indicates some kind of physical action, right? Like an impact or a breakage. However, from the footage shot from the ground, it doesn't seem like there were signs of a bird strike, nor does it appear that there was any physical impact. Therefore, this has become a significant mystery. If this puzzle is solved, we might roughly know the cause of the accident. Through this issue, I also feel that the survivor is extremely important. Without this information, there would be too many directions to suspect, but this information consolidates all scattered clues into a few possible directions. So far, these are the known details. I hope the cause of the incident can be found quickly. If there is indeed some bug on the plane, then improving it or grounding the aircraft promptly could prevent more accidents from happening. Some people might think that Boeing planes are not reliable because many recent air crashes have involved Boeing aircraft, and they might feel hesitant to fly on them in the future. However, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Major aviation accidents are the result of many critical factors working together, and the issues with the aircraft itself are just one aspect, and perhaps even a relatively minor one. The more significant concern frequently resides within the human factor, such as whether the airline is meticulously maintaining the safety standards of the aircraft. Furthermore, whether the airport offers optimal conditions for both takeoff and landing is equally crucial. Consequently, in comparison to selecting an aircraft and model, smaller airlines and airports might be more important. An internationally renowned airline safety and product rating website, airlineratings.com, evaluated the safety standards of 385 global airlines and determined that the safest airline worldwide is Air New Zealand. Second is European Airlines. Third is Cathay Pacific, which is tied for third with Qatar Airways and Emirates. Sixth is Virgin Australia. Seventh is Etihad Airways, which is located in the UAE. Eighth is All Nippon Airways. Ninth is EVA Air. 10th is Korean Air. 11th is Alaska Airlines. 12th is Turkish Airlines. 13th is TAP Portugal. 14th is Hawaiian Airlines. 15th is American Airlines. 16th is Scandinavian Airlines. 17th is British Airways, and 18th is Iberia Airlines. The 19th is Finnair from Spain. The 20th is Lufthansa, tied with Swiss Air. The 21st is Japan Airlines. The 22nd is Air Canada. The 23rd is Delta Airlines. The 24th is Vietnam Airlines. And the 25th is United Airlines. These are the top 25 safest airlines globally and are definitely the top choice for travelers. Besides these 25 regular airlines, there are also 25 safest low-cost airlines. Let me tell you the top 10. The first is Hong Kong Express. The second is Jetstar Airways from Australia. The third is Ryanair from Ireland. And the fifth is Frontier Airlines from the United States. The sixth is Air Asia from Malaysia. The seventh is Wizz Air. The eighth is Vietjet Air from Vietnam. The ninth is Southwest Airlines from the United States. And the 10th is Volaris from Mexico. It was in Mexico. To be honest, I was surprised not to see Singapore on this list. I checked, and Singapore Airlines has very high ratings across the board. However, unfortunately, on May 21st, 2024, which was last year, Singapore Airlines SQ321 flight from London to Singapore encountered extreme turbulence, resulting in the death of one passenger and injuries to several others. The turbulence occurred over Myanmar's airspace, causing severe jolts and leading to an emergency landing at Thailand's Suvarnabhumi airport. The deceased in this incident was a 73-year-old British man. He was originally planning to travel to Asia with his family for 6 weeks, but an accident occurred. He had a heart condition, and it is very likely that he died of a heart attack. According to passengers on the plane, when the turbulence occurred, many people were unprepared, as it happened suddenly. The plane descended sharply, causing many people to be thrown into the air, with some hitting the ceiling, and reportedly, someone even dented the luggage compartment. It shows how severe the sudden drop was. This also reminds us that whenever we fly, we should always fasten our seatbelts. The aircraft was a Boeing 737. Although I think this was an absolute accident, it is still somewhat related to the airline's management. As a result of this incident, Singapore Airlines dropped out of the top 25. Just as there are the safest airlines, there are also those with particularly low ratings, which are relatively riskier. Although the website did not provide a ranking, there are still more than a dozen airlines with only a 1-star rating, such as Aeroflot and Nigeria's Peace Air. Faishan Airlines, Pakistan International Airlines, Russia's Victory Airlines, Tanzania's Precision Air, Russian Airlines and Russia's Ural Airlines are numerous, possibly mainly due to conflicts. Additionally, Bangladesh has good restrictions, Russia's Jewish Airlines, and Indonesia's Wings Air. Now that we've looked at airlines, let's take a look at airports, which are equally important. I think everyone should still remember the end of last year, specifically December 29th. The issues in Korea a few weeks back, the plane first faced a bird strike, then during landing, it hit the ground in Kyiv, crashing into what was called a mound at the runway's end, actually an antenna. A violent explosion happened and all 179 people died. Whether it was a runway issue or a bird strike, both are tied to the airport. Regarding airports, there's no definitive safety ranking since some are in very risky spots. For instance, Nepal's Lukla Airport is in the Himalayas, at a high altitude of over 2,800 meters, with frequent dense fog and strong winds. It is considered one of the most dangerous airports in the world, and its runway is only 527 meters long. Generally, airport runways are less than 2,000 meters, although that's relatively rare. Normal airports usually have runways around 3,000 meters, like Singapore's airport runway, which can extend to 4,000 meters, making it relatively safer. This airport's runway is just over 500 meters, and it ends at a cliff, meaning that planes cannot abandon takeoff. If the runway were longer, pilots could choose to abort takeoff if they felt the speed was insufficient, or if an unexpected situation arose. However, this runway means that the plane cannot abandon takeoff. If it does, it will crash, so it must take off forcefully regardless of the outcome. Therefore, although there aren't many planes at this airport, the number of fatal accidents is relatively high. Besides these terrain issues, there are many airports that are dangerous due to war or being underdeveloped, such as those in some poorer and less developed countries in Africa. In my opinion, these are special cases. As for normal airports, without war or significant geographical issues, it seems that India is quite notable in this regard. Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, which is the busiest airport in India, was once one of the airports with the most incidents globally. This is because the flight density in India is particularly high due to the large population, and there aren't that many airports. Additionally, the radar systems aren't very advanced, and many electronic devices are relatively outdated, leading to a higher number of incidents. I have seen many experts, as well as pilots who have flown through Indian airports, indicate that the management in India is relatively lax. Therefore, this accident might also be related to the inadequate oversight by the Indian airline company. By the way, while preparing this film, I discovered something quite intriguing, which is that there was a survivor in this air crash. Everyone found it amazing and unbelievable because it is commonly believed that air crashes often result in complete fatalities. However, after some research, I found that having survivors in air crashes is not uncommon. Last year, possibly 1-3 to 1-4 of plane crashes had survivors, and there were quite a few instances with a single survivor. For example, I think everyone might remember that on January 2nd last year, a Japan Airlines flight collided with a Japan Coast Guard aircraft that was on a mission for earthquake relief during its landing. We made a video about it. Fortunately, there were no casualties on the larger plane, but the Coast Guard aircraft exploded. On the plane, 6 were on board and 1 survived. Then, on January 23rd last year, there was Northwest Airlines Flight 738 in Canada, a small passenger plane. The plane took off and then crashed, similar to this incident, but it was a particularly small plane with a total of 7 people on board and 1 survived. Additionally, on January 29th of this year, a charter plane in South Sudan crashed 10 minutes after takeoff due to engine failure. There were 2 Chinese nationals on this plane because it was a charter by China National Petroleum Corporation, likely carrying oil-related executives in South Sudan. On this plane, out of 19 people, only 1 survived, who was a South Sudanese engineer, which I find even more amazing. Logically, everyone was in the same space, yet the outcome was so vastly different. It's truly a bit unbelievable. Airplanes are quite paradoxical. Theoretically, they have the highest safety rating among all modes of transportation, yet they are also the ones we fear the most. I looked it up, and according to 2023 data, the probability of dying in an aviation accident is 1 in 37 million. This means that even if you fly every day, it would take 100,000 years to encounter a fatal accident. It would take 100,000 years to encounter a fatal accident, which is much less likely than winning the lottery. However, we are still very afraid because the extremity of such accidents is very strong. I think everyone hopes for a solution that can completely shield against such fatal accidents, right? Like putting some parachutes or something on the plane. But actually, I think it's impossible to completely shield against it. We previously made a film called 3906, which is about the prophecy of Dinah. I don't know if everyone remembers, but Dinah suddenly fainted and then had a soul exchange with someone from 2,000 years later in 3906. Oh, the person from 2,000 days later experienced a traffic accident, so both of them entered a near-death state and had a soul exchange. At that time, many viewers left comments saying, "Oh, is it still possible to have traffic accidents 2,000 years later?" which led them to doubt the truth of what Dinah said. Dinah said, regardless of whether this is true or not, let's discuss whether it's possible to have traffic accidents 2,000 years later. I believe it's absolutely possible because no matter how technology advances, accidents cannot be completely eliminated. If accidents were to be eliminated, it would mean eliminating all other possibilities. Turning a possibility into an absolute, right? Absolutes exist in theory, but not in reality. Even after 2,000 or even 20,000 years, it's still impossible. Dinosaurs lived for 200 million years and vanished due to an accident. So it's not about time length. Longer time doesn't mean fewer accidents. In fact, it might increase since that possibility remains. Information doesn't vanish. It's the conservation of information. Thus, any possibility won't disappear. It's just about the size of the possibility. No matter how much technology advances in the future, the possibility of accidents won't disappear. We can only use science and technology to reduce the mortality rate as much as possible. Moreover, if human systems could predict all possibilities, meaning if you want to avoid certain possibilities, you would predict all possibilities. If all possibilities could be predicted, then a demon would appear. This is what the Laplace's demon film talks about, suggesting that within the system, we shouldn't be able to predict the entirety of the system. Unless we go outside the system, and if we want to go outside the system, we would be like gods, right? But that's impossible. At least for me, it's impossible to go outside the system. So no matter when, whether it's 3,900, 139,000, or 939,000, such accidents cannot be completely avoided. We can only infinitely reduce this risk. To reduce risk, it's better to fly less, and if you do fly, try to choose airlines and airports with higher safety ratings. The rest is left to fate, so there's really no way around it. Alright, let's wrap it up for today. I just hope everyone, while being amazed, doesn't get too anxious. Life is like this. Not everything in this world can be completely predicted. We can only hope that airlines do their best to ensure safety and minimize the possibility of human-caused accidents. It's probably best not to overthink the rest. So, we'll stop here for today, and see you next time.